So, 301 subscribers. So, I decided to build a ship in Kerbal Space Program that uses 301 parts. Now, as you can see, I completely sped up this process. It took me like, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes. So, we'll get through this relatively quickly. Started building the ship, didn't even know what I was going to do with it, what mission, anything. I just threw parts at the screen to see what would happen. And it worked surprisingly well. Got 4 of these satellites that I set up. I ended up making 4 relay satellites that I launch out. So that's one of the new parts in the new update. It's kind of a neat solar dish thing, but kind of makes those spacecraft very lopsided and hard to control, but I made it work. So not a whole lot I can say about it here. I had a bunch of science. Obviously, this is in a sandbox mode, so it doesn't really matter. Just adding stuff to it to make a practical ship, if you will. And totally forgot to add struts to hold that in place. I add that later. I do have one failed attempt at launch, and I just revert back and replace the struts. So that's usually only one revert to fix a minor issue. I normally have a couple more, 1 or 2 more than just that, so not too bad. The main, what would you call it, lifting stage, the big stage right there, I end up making that recoverable and totally failed the recovery on it at the very last moment. So, but I tried. Standard onion staging where those tanks will feed the mains, all the engines, and then when they shed them off, you're left with a full tank to get to the last stage. Works reasonably well. I think I had those in here in a second. So now we're doing the recovery bit. So probe core, forgot that you can just place the batteries there. So the reaction wheel right there. Yeah, totally ended up smashing that when I separated everything. So, fortunately, I add here in a minute some RCS thrusters, which actually kind of saved my ass. I initially added them to speed up getting positioned for the circularization burn. Because a big heavy rocket like this is kind of hard to easily turn. So I usually like to throw RCS thrusters, just if anything else, for that one stage of getting this positioned for a circularization burn. So, solar panels, antennas, bunch of the air brakes, which actually work quite well. I like those. Probably massive overkill on the parachutes, but at this point, I'm just trying to figure out how I can get 301 parts on a ship. So I go a little excessive on things. Let's see here. Oh yeah, this is total sandbagging. I added a whole bunch of those solar panels right there, and for no other reason than purely to get the count part up. Why was that hard to say? I have no clue. I'm really bad at speaking sometimes. So, yep, we're getting near the end of this. I think I do staging here in a minute. Thought I edited this part out. Okay, there it is. Yep, RCS. Absolutely needed and saved my ass. So, let's see. What is the part count at the moment? Okay, we're at part, yep, doing the staging now, and yep, staging something like this is a complete pain in the ass sometimes. And nauseating speed up over. And the first failed attempt, not really failed, I probably could have gotten it into space, but if you see the load in the fairing will start to wobble, and I don't think I cut it out. Did I cut it out? Oh, I think I cut it out. Okay, yeah, I cut that section out because this video was getting way too long, I think. I cut out a lot of little things like that, so... But yeah, okay, so this is actually the one that launched it. So, now I don't go too aggressive on the gravity turn because it is a pretty kind of chunky boy rocket. And I had only had that one previous attempt, and I didn't get further than right here until I just reverted and added the struts I needed. But, yeah, just slowly tilting. And I don't go to a full 45 degrees at about 10,000, like, smaller rockets you normally do, because this thing has way more fuel than it actually needs. So it didn't really need to be an efficient flight path. Nearing the staging of the external boosters. Something blows up. I don't even remember what blew up, but something blows up on this staging. Maybe I should have added an extra set of separatrons or something to fling them further away, but not a very big deal in my opinion. Anytime now. I think it was probably yeah, something blew up there. Might have been one of the because I was planning on recovering that and landing it on land, the main stage. So I had a couple of seismic detectors there. So if in theory, you could land it and then get signs from somewhere else. But I end up landing in water, and the entire thing tips and blows up. Well, not the entire thing, but most of it blows up. So it's kind of a failed recovery, but we'll get to that in a second. Oh, let's see. At this point, I'm just getting our apoapsis up. Well, we're almost there. I think I ended at like 80K? Maybe 100? I don't remember. Okay. Start tilting more aggressively. Okay, so I did go for 80K. It's a fairly reasonable apoapsis to circularize at. And as you can see, I'm getting to the apoapsis really quickly. So this is where one of the reasons why for large rockets I have RCS boosters, RCS thrusters in order to get positioned quickly, because just reaction wheels on something that large, it never works quick enough, and you end up re-entering the atmosphere before you have a chance to complete your burn, which is no good. So because if you can see here, I literally just make it in time to actually fire off the engines in a reasonable amount of time for your circularization burn. So now, this, I do not have any mods installed, not even Kerbal Engineer or anything like that. I usually have Kerbal Engineer or even MechJeb. This is all just kind of like freehand, quick and dirty, getting maneuvers and things like that. Alright, so the basic idea is I send two probes, well, not probes, relays, to Minimus and the Mun, and then I send two out into a far Kerbal orbit, one on a polar orbit and one on a equatorial orbit. And it's a pretty simple and very effective, not the best, but it is effective and cheap relay system, so that there are very few times when you'll have dead space using something like that. So that's the basic idea of this mission. And I totally kind of like winged that mission because I started out building this thing with no clue what I was going to do with it. So that's the basic idea. And once we get this thing circularized and all that, I will make the second part of this, because this it's really hard to cut this down into at least 30-ish minute sections. So I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces. Already have everything recorded, so it won't be a problem at all. But we get things set up to send the probes out. So now end up trying to land this thing, and it's reasonably successful in my opinion. I did end up blowing up that reaction wheel. Fortunately, the RCS thruster saved my ass on this, and I had enough monopropellant to get away with it. But yeah, it worked well, except for the landing in water part and then tilting. So it didn't work as well as I would have liked. Position for a deorbit burn, and I end up scrubbing a lot of speed off, orbital speed off, with all the fuel that I have left on here. Didn't need to do that, but it really helped to make sure that this thing didn't come in way too fast and either burn up or not slow down enough for me to activate the parachutes. So fortunately, that worked out well. Air brakes deployed, and can't tell by this preview window how much Delta V this thing has left, but it was a lot of Delta V still. So managed to get rid of most of the speed. I should have went for like a SpaceX type landing. This thing could have done it. But I was just going through this relatively quickly. I think this entire mission only took me about 2 hours in total. The build was like 40 minutes. And then the missions themselves took an additional hour and some, obviously. But, really wasn't too bad. I've had some missions that were like, that took forever to do. Not only because of, even with speed ups and all that, it just really takes a long time sometimes to do even relatively simple missions. Like, I've seen some of the bigger YouTubers that do Kerbal Space, and I'm like, some of the missions they do, I swear they spent weeks recording and doing stuff. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous stuff like that. I think the Separatron one I did was most of a day kind of tinkering and working on that. So that was a good couple hours, and that was with using Mech Jeb for the actual launch sequence. Some would say cheating, but I just needed it to consistently work. So that I could, fine tune the thrust on that. And if I didn't do that, I don't think I could have pulled it off in a consistent enough manner. Yeah, this thing has a pretty light re-entry, as it slowed down so much. I was worried that the air brakes wouldn't necessarily be enough to keep it from tumbling, but looks like they did their job, and the RCS did help. Now, this is always a fun maneuver, trying to figure out when you should pull the chute. And considering I had not tested this vehicle at all, and I'm pretty sure I had way overkill on the parachutes, waited till pretty close to the last minute. Not like speed run tactic last minute, but pretty close. So they didn't get fully deployed until about 700 meters above the ocean. However, yeah, this is definitely overkill for parachutes on this thing. Actually very thankful that it did not blow up because of fizz warp. I do avoid trying to use physical time warp on anything this large and with this many parachutes, but I guess it worked fairly well. Turn on stabilization and I attempt to recover it before it tilts. Don't do it quick enough. Up, nope, too late, can't do it. And partial success. Moving on. This last little maneuver before I end this video here is deploying the satellites. I'll make a separate video of actually sending the satellites to their destinations, as well as I haven't done this part yet, but a mission for that capsule, because that thing has a ton of fuel in it. I can go pretty far on what's in there, even if I do a not efficient burn. So I haven't done that part, but everything up into the sending the probes out into a nice relay network has been done. So I don't know. Not sure what I would do as with the crew module and all that, but this is a fun way of making a string of pearls, so to speak. You can line them up really nicely and set them. It's a good formation to work with in order to send them out, because it keeps them far enough away from each other that they don't, bump into each other or cause problems trying to, launch them. So just a little spin, and this is used actually by actual space, NASA, whatever, SpaceX, this kind of stuff. I think they do something similar when they're doing their satellite system for what is it called? Starlink. They just kind of spin it up and then fling them out like that, and it works well. All right, at that point, I think I'm going to wrap this particular video up, and the second part will come out probably in a couple of days, where we actually get these satellites into their respective orbits. Thanks again for all the for all 301 of you that have actually subscribed to this channel.